In this video, we're going to go ahead and take a look at implementing our deletion. Now, if you recall, we are going to implement a soft delete. What I mean by that is if we set the deleted at to a date, we'll consider that post to be no longer visible on the home page, or the front page, or really any of the front end of the website. We'll also have the option of completely destroying a post if we want to and completely remove it from the database, but having a soft delete I find is very, very useful personally, because then you can restore your data if you ever accidentally delete something or decide you want to use something later.
That sounds like a good idea.
Alright, this fortunately is going to be fairly straightforward because we have most of everything already in place. I'm going to go back into posts index. What we need to do is we need to add in URLs for each one of these actions. So let's do that. I'm going to say URL action. This is going to be the trash. So I'll just call it the action trash. And I need to tell the action which ID to generate it for. Next up, I'm going to say data-post equals, are you sure you want to trash this post? Remember, that's the reusable JavaScript component that'll bring up a little message box.
You put point instead of post.
There we go.
Awesome.
Next up, let's implement add for our delete. So I'm going to say URL action delete new post.id with a data post of are you sure you want to delete this post forever?
Alrighty.
Then finally, we will have our URL for our restore, which will be simply URL action restore new post.id with a data-post, but we're actually not going to add a confirm message into it.
Okay.
No reason to.
All right. I like that.
Okay, well, it's going to require that I add an equals sign into it. Let's just be valid. Why not? Okay, so now all we have to do is implement these three methods: trash, delete, and restore. They're all going to be incredibly similar. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that looks. If we come back down here to the bottom of our posts controller, I'm going to add a public AR trash with an int ID for the post ID. Then I'm going to say var post equals database session load post for ID. If post does not equal null, return HTTP not found. Otherwise, set post deleted at to datetime.utcnow. Do database session update post, and do return redirect to action index. You'll also notice that I got my Boolean logic wrong right here. I'm saying if post does not equal null return. We want to say if post does equal null
Does
return.
equal null. Okay.
Next up, we need our perma-delete, which is simply delete. Now guess what delete's going to do? It's pretty much going to do everything that trash does. Except for, instead of saying deleted at an update, it's simply going to say database.session.delete.
Gone forever.
Yep. Now let's do our restore. Our restore is going to look exactly like trash, except it's going to set deleted at to null instead of UTC now. It's basically going to clear out the deleted flag. That's the only difference with restore.
Oh, that's nifty.
Okay, now you would want to start to think about abstracting out the concept of acquiring a post from the database and returning HTTP not found if it's not found. I won't go too much into that because for people who might not be used to ideas in more functional ideas, with passing around lambdas and expressions, it might actually make this code a little bit more obfuscated than it is. But I would say that as an exercise for someone, it'd be interesting to see if you could make all three of these methods into maybe 1 or 2 lines of code.
Ooh, that sounds like a heck of a challenge.
Yeah, well, it's possible. Okay, the last thing I need to do is I need to add my HTTP post and my validate anti-forgery token attributes to all three of these methods.
Excellent. Very nice.
Now I'm going to hit F6, come back here and hit refresh. and see if we can start trashing our posts. So this is a post. Let's trash it. Look at that.
Look at that, and we have our restore button.
Yep. So we can trash a couple posts. Let's try to delete this as a post. And it goes away. Now let's try to restore them. And they're restored. So how do you think that looks, Steve?
I think that looks really cool. Now, I do have one big question. After all this, in the last video, we talked about, was it tags?
Yeah.
There's something we didn't do.
Yeah. There is one nice little nifty component that I find myself moving from project to project, and that has to do with slug generation.
Slugs, that was it.
Right. So if I go to create a new post and I start typing in a title, like that's the best title in the world.
It's awesome.
I want to automatically have a URL compatible slug generated for me automatically. Right?
Yeah.
So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to write another nice little reusable JavaScript component. I'm going to put it in forms.js. What it's going to do is it's going to search for every single element on the page that has a data-slug data attribute attached to it, and it's going to loop over them. I'm going to alias out the jQuery, the results of applying the jQuery function to this object. Then I'm going to acquire send slug from this data slug. What does this mean? Well, the way that I'm going to write this is the data slug is going to equal a selector that selects an element that I want to generate the slug from. This variable then contains a reference to the element I want to acquire this slug from.
Alrighty.
So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say send slug from dot keyup function. This means every time you hit a key on the input that the send slug from is set to, we're going to execute some code. Now the code is going to be a little terrifying, but bear with me. We're going to say var slug equals send slug from dot val. Then we're going to say slug equals slug dot replace, and then we're going to put in a regular expression. This is going to be fun. So basically what we're going to say is we're going to replace any character that is not A through Z, capital A through capital Z, 0 through 9, or a space with empty string. Then we're going to say slug equals slug dot to lower case. Then we're going to say slug equals slug dot replace, and then we're going to type in another global regular expression that is plus s or slash s plus, which is one or more spaces. Every one or more space is going to be replaced with a dash. Finally, we're going to check to see if the final character in the slug is a dash. If it is, then we'll want to go ahead and not remove it, or remove it, sorry. So I'm going to say if val character at val, or not val, what am I doing? If slug character at slug dot length minus 1 equals dash, then slug equals slug subster 0 slug length minus 1, and then we set this val to slug.
That was extraordinarily scary.
Well, okay, the logic is pretty straightforward. All we're doing here is we're looping through everything that has a data slug attribute on it. We're then using the value of the data slug attribute to locate the text field that we're going to be acquiring the slug from. Then we attach an event handler that says every time a key is pressed on that element, we're going to produce a slug out of it. How do we do that? Well, first we replace every single special character with empty string. So we get rid of all of the special characters. Then we turn it into lowercase. Then we find every single instance of one or more spaces and replace it with a dash. Then we check to see if the final character is a dash. If it is, we trim the final character off. and then we update our value to equal the slug.
Alrighty, and then that way it can be recognized by Google and such because there's no special characters or stuff that it doesn't understand.
Yeah, otherwise it would just be ugly and break and not work right. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
So now how do we use this? Well, let's go back into our form action. That's under Views, Posts, Form, and let's look at our slug. What I want to do is I want to add a data attribute into this text box input. But we have a problem. I can't say data-slug equals pound title like I want to, like you could do in HTML. The reason is this syntax is invalid in C# because of the dash there. Identifiers may not have dashes. But you want to hear something awesome?
I do. I want to hear all sorts of awesome things.
In HTML, the opposite is true. In HTML, you cannot have attributes with underscores in them. Or rather, there are no attributes with underscores in them. Which means that C#, what it does is it will translate anything with an underscore into a dash, which is valid in C#.
That's pretty awesome.
So now if we compile this, I don't think we actually needed to do that, but we did it anyway, and refresh, and we look at the page source, look at this input value for the slug. There is now a data-slug that equals pound title. Pound title is the selector, an ID selector, that'll select out our title input, meaning that the slug will receive its slug information from the title input. So let's see how that looks.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. So now we have a automatically generated slug, even though the title had uppercase characters, spaces, and special characters within it.
That is really awesome.
And this is a very reusable component where all you have to do is say data-slug equals.
That makes it extra awesome.
Okay, so we've seen how to do that. We've seen how to both trash our posts and restore them and perma-delete them. And we've fixed up our slugs. So I think this just about wraps up this video. Let's go ahead and commit our changes.
Now, I did interrupt you with the Slugs thing, so are you sure we're not missing anything? I don't want to have screwed you up.
Oh no, that was all we were doing. Delete, restore, trash, and our awesome slug handler.
Excellent.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and commit this, and I'm going to commit it as delete, restore, and trash posts, and slugify component. Commit, and we're done. At least with this, we have a lot more stuff to do.
We're done with that video. Time to go to the next.
Yep. All right.